Welcome back, my little friends, to the show that is hopefully recording correctly, unlike yesterday's episode. So, Paul, remember how 48 hours ago I was like, man, that Windows update screwed up this thing, and then the mic was messed up and whatever else?
Yeah.
So yesterday's show, for whatever reason, the audio and the video were not synced correctly, which is typically a frame rate issue. And I checked everything in XSplit, and everything looks okay. So if this episode doesn't work
Can we take a week off so you have time to fix it properly?
Well, fortunately, the audio works just fine. So,
yeah. So this morning I did something I can't say I've never done, but I've probably only done 2 or 3 times in my life, which is I went back and watched the episode because I was curious. Somebody had mentioned it on Twitter, and I guess watched the episode is the wrong term because it is just audio, as you said. But yeah, it sounded okay.
Yeah, no, the audio was fine. And despite the fact that in the first 5 seconds there was large text overlay that says audio video desynced, and rather than just showing us like talking with our mouse not moving, but
that's
audio
what you should have done, is animated the mouths. You know how they do that, like
the real answer there, Paul, is I just don't care enough.
Yeah, I think the when you're talking about something that comes out every single day,
there's not a lot of time to test it. And for the most users of the or listeners of this podcast are in fact listeners. They're not. Granted, there are a couple thousand people that do watch the video, but the majority.
Wow. Well, I am very sorry.
Yeah,
to all of you.
The majority is always audio, though. So,
Okay.
Paul, I have an update that will probably appease you in some ways. Maybe I shouldn't say this update. So I went to the dentist this morning.
Was ether used as I requested?
No, unfortunately not. There was much gouging and much chatting. No cavities, which is good.
Good.
But I will tell you, so this is, I think, 2 or 3 dentist visits in a row with no cavities. And granted, not that I have a ton of them, but every once in a while, whatever, you get one.
Yep.
But my dentist notably said, he said, hey, your teeth look the best they've ever looked in the 7, 8 years in your mouth. And he goes, what did you change? And I said, well, it was a little over a year ago. I just stopped drinking pop. Just it's not that I completely gave up Coke. We just don't have it in the house anymore. And I'm down to maybe 1 or 2 a month. It's only when we're out at restaurants, or if we go out drinking, I'll get a Jack and Coke, but that's it. And he's like, he's like, I can just tell by looking at my notes from, the years past. He's like, your mouth is great. I'm like, thanks. So,
and what, I'm sorry, and this has what to do with me? Other than my constant berating of your eating habits.
Well, it's by removing Coke, that's a significant source of sugar.
Yeah. Right. So I think for most people, you want to remove carbs or sugars from your life. The easiest thing to do is what you just did. It's it's the big,
it's their
low-hanging fruit, as we say.
Not that I should be a preacher of. I don't eat terribly when I'm at home, but when on the road, I could eat better. But you know what? It's on the road. Not that I'm a advocate of crazy healthy lifestyles, but not only did it save me money because I'm not paying to fill cavities, but it's like my dentist is like, hey, this, like, they didn't even yell at me for not flossing, which I rarely do. They're like, your teeth look great. I was like, thank you.
So, okay, since we went down this little rabbit hole, first of all, congratulations. It's really good. I was talking about my wife, who you've met, but a lot of people probably don't know this, is a writer as well.
Yep.
She writes mostly about health and nutrition topics. And she spends a lot of time on the phone talking to doctors and probably people around doctors, like clinicians or whatever. And, I'm on the phone a few times a week talking to Microsoft or Intel or other companies, whatever it might be. But my wife is on the phone, regularly. Like, it's a constant thing. And because of time zone changes, we'll have times where she says we have to eat dinner early or late because I'm doing this call at this time or whatever it is. Or she has to get up early in some cases. And she writes for a diverse range of publications, some of which are actually print publications associated with hospitals. Some are online, obviously, and on, whatever. I'm not trying to give you my wife's biography, other than to say that she spent a lot of, in the sense that I've spent a lot of time covering Microsoft, she has spent a lot of time covering health and nutrition. And she told me recently, some of her work has appeared on NBC. And so NBC I believe they actually have a print magazine of some kind as well. But there are articles, websites. And some of her stuff has ended up on TV, like the like Today Show or whatever. Like they'll do a segment on health or whatever. So a couple times now, there's been this. This has happened, so it's kind of interesting. Anyway, the point of all this is she came to me the other day and she said that she has just realized over the course of interview, because she does like these success stories and non-success stories too, from people who've tried to lose weight lately, and she's talked to some number of people. I may actually have her write this up on our site, because I've written about the health hacking stuff and the stuff that I've gone through, and I think her perspective on this might be kind of interesting to people. So I don't want to say the exact number because I actually don't know what it is, but let's say she's talked to 30 to 50 people, and she has over that period of time come to this understanding that people lose weight in different ways, but there is one way that every single person she's ever spoken to, the one commonality that they all have, every single one of them, is they cut carbs, right?
Oh, sure.
And whether they thought they were doing it or not. Some people are like, I just ate less. It's like, well, what were you eating? And then they describe the diet, and they're like, well, you're eating less carbs, And it is the removal of sugar, which is what carbs are. That makes you healthier, and your teeth health is kind of interesting. That's actually an aspect of it I literally have never considered.
Yeah.
But she will have an article about this sometime soon. Literally has proposed this to NBC, because this is you can kind of picture it in a clickbait headline like, these 50 people lost weight in different ways, but you'll never believe what the one thing is they all have in common. Well, that one thing is that thing I've been harping on, for the past 2 years, is carbs. Whether that means starches in the form of potatoes or literal sugars like the Coke that you stop drinking or whatever. So anyway, just to kind of correspond to that, because I think that's kind of interesting.
I'm not giving up the tots yet, though. We're not there. We're not that.
Well, okay. So the bone I'll throw you, because bone meat marrow is actually very healthy, is that people are all different too. And so I think the science of nutrition, such as it is going to evolve. I think that all of us are going to have a personal solution to the problem. You and I could eat exactly the same amounts and nature of food, and you might lose weight or whatever, maintain your slim figure, and I will gain 50 pounds because my metabolism is all fucked, whatever. And
we're also different ages too, which is plays a big part into it as well.
Yeah, I was as thin as you when I was a teenager. I was not as thin as you when I was your age, and so, whatever. I ate a lot of bread, drank a lot of beer, whatever. Some people can smoke their entire lives and they never have cancer.
Yeah.
And some people can, you might be able to eat potatoes every single day and you'll be fine. Yeah. And science right now literally doesn't know why. It is kind of an interesting thing. I mean, you have to kind of understand what works for you. The reason I did what I did is that I know that everything I did before failed. And I can't even say that I've succeeded on this because I'm still not where I want to be. I still have, a long way to go. But anyway, it's interesting to me that you just came up with this sugar thing, because I literally just talked to my wife about this.
Yeah. And I'm sure everyone who tuned in for this show for snarky comments about the iPhone XR, XS, and X Max are wondering what the hell they're listening to.
Well, first of all, let's flash forward 24 hours because there will be some of that. And actually, let's flash forward about, 2.5 hours when this event actually starts. If you're looking forward to that stuff, I will probably be accommodating you on Twitter today.
Yeah.
I actually meant to write a thoughtful piece about Apple this morning, which has to do with Apple and diversification and how it's kind of bizarre to me. Not bizarre, but Apple's always been kind of a special company. And I literally wanted to kind of say this in front of the Snark because I'll have some fun with this today for sure. But I think it's important for people to understand how unique Apple is and how contrary they are to all of the things we know to be true about businesses and markets and whatever. They are the smoker who has never gotten cancer and is super healthy as well as like a star athlete. I mean, they kind of do everything wrong. And Microsoft lost many years, and I think Google is losing years right now, trying to copy that model. The Steven Sinofsky Windows 8 overreaction to touch-based computing and all that kind of stuff is one of many, many examples that other companies are not Apple, and that when you try to chase that, you just can't be successful.
The only thing I will say is before the storm of tweets, as I say, I think at every Apple event, I will hilariously make fun of all this stuff and buy 10 of each. Yeah,
I mean, every fall's a little tough from a financial perspective. You know, an iPhone is about $1,000. My cat has arrived for some reason. The Google phone I need to buy is about $1,000. I have an aging MacBook Air that I'd like to replace if they come out with this 13-inch MacBook today, like I expect them to. This is more than $1,000, and I have a kid in college.
Yep.
I don't have thousands of dollars burning a hole in my pocket. So there's some decision making that has to occur here. It's a tough, you know, thank God there's not a new Xbox coming out.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, like there are some years, I guess every other year is the way it's worked. But yeah, I've sort of been trying to mentally prepare my wife for this. Like, how do you feel about holding a balance for a little while?
Yeah. Which reminds me, I got to
like,
tell you something after the show, I think.
Okay. This is related to shipments and packages and things.
Potentially. But as kind of
We
Paul
just
and I
perform a drug deal like on like a live podcast.
Paul and I have kind of joked about here as the cat came back the very next day. All of Apple's stuff kind of leaked. This event might be a little boring. I would love it if they announced something that we didn't expect, but Apple, obviously their store went down, but before their store went down, somebody was able to grab a screenshot of their sitemap, which they'd already updated, and it announced the names for the new iPhones. I think they're going to call the Apple Watch Series 4 like 40 millimeter and 44 instead of 38 and 42 or whatever current one was. And so I'm not expecting too much new.
Like surprise, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do this with Microsoft too. I find it interesting how companies present what they've done. You know, like they're going to announce these things. We kind of understand what they are, but there's a kind of marketing message behind each of the products that's based on some belief, whether it's real or imagined, that this thing will, you know, improve things for people in some way. And I get into, because I cover Microsoft more and have covered Microsoft more, I've often had these conversations with people from Microsoft where they said, well, we understand that you know the basics of this thing, whatever it might be. I need to remove this animal before she destroys something. You know, if you want, we can skip ahead to the, you know, whatever. And I said, no. Every time I'm like, no, I have to get this through my head. I like the repetition. Because sometimes it changes a little bit. You know, there's a shift in the way that they do things. And so yes, I mean, honestly, this is like movies for me. I don't care if you ruin the plot to a movie. I'm one of those people. I really don't care. Some people really care. I actually kind of like going into this, knowing what's going to happen. And now I can, with that background, evaluate the way they communicate it in a more effective way. Because if this thing was a surprise, I'd still be reacting to the new weirdness of what it was.
Yep. So it'll be a good event. I bet it runs about 90 minutes. Still a potential for maybe new MacBook Airs on the horizon, and so we'll see. I mean, it'll be you know, Apple doing Apple's thing.
Look, you can't go, well, although Microsoft has shifted things around a little bit, but Microsoft events for many years were very informed by the Steve Jobs presentation style. Google events today are, you know, same exact thing. But what these companies don't have that you know, iPhone does is this kind of thing that's unique to Apple, because they just really do everything they themselves, as much as possible. Obviously, there are certain things they can't do, but there is it's awful. I mean, I don't want you to drive into that one-way dead-end road and get stuck there, you know, the Apple lock-in thing, but there is a benefit to it that you can't ignore. And, you know, we'll see. I think Tim Cook is kind of a stiff, and I wish there was something better happening there, but I'm fascinated by it. I'm very interested to see what they do.
Yeah, we will see, and that'll happen here in a couple hours. And the other thing that kind of popped up today, quite literally, is that if you now go install Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, you get this nice little pop-up back here of Edge saying like, hey,
actually, can you, have you verified that? Is this the case everywhere, or is this just an 1809?
I don't know.
I think this might be in 1809 only.
I think that's my impression.
Yeah, the reason is there's been a control in settings, and I'll just go look at it now because I won't remember the exact wording of it. But when you go to settings apps, there's a thing at the top called installing apps, and it starts out choose where you can get apps from. I believe this debuted alongside Windows 10s, and The idea here is, at the time, it's different now, but you used to be able to say, well, I want to install apps from everywhere. And that was normal, and that's the default, unless you're in S mode. The S mode default was allow apps from the store only, and you couldn't switch out of it, right? And I've always said, like, S mode doesn't have to be a one-way street. What you should be able to do is install the apps you need and then go into that mode, right? I think that's a compromise that Microsoft should make. They seem unwilling to make, but I think it would work. This has changed now so that there is no option called allow me to install apps from anywhere. There are two new options. Show me app recommendations, which is the default, and turn off app recommendations. The other two options are still there. So you can still, you want to see a warning when you install a non-store app, whatever it is. I haven't tried this with other app types, but I think what people are going to discover is if they install something that replaces the Photos app, you'll get that same style of pop-up, perhaps. I mean, obviously for the browser, it's kind of job one. But when you think about all of the ads for Edge that have appeared in Windows 10 over the years, what this does is it moves it forward in the process to the time when you're literally downloading the app. Like, a lot of people, I mean, sorry world, but 4% of people are using Microsoft Edge. So a lot of people install Windows 10 or get Windows 10, open Edge, and they go to google.com/Chrome or firefox.com or wherever they might go. It used to warn you well after that. Like if you took that step to make that browser the default, Microsoft would warn you then. If you pinned the app sometimes to your taskbar, sometimes Microsoft would warn you then. Now they're literally warning you when you install it, like at download time. So this is absolutely an escalation of what is obviously a losing war, trying to get people to use Edge.
I don't see them doing this because things are going so perfectly. And
yes, right.
So, you got anything else for today? Because it's going to be a busy afternoon.
We're going to be a little distracted today, Brad. So no, I'm going to focus on Apple today mostly. I mean, obviously, if something happens in the interim, we have Mehdi has written an incredible number of articles that are kind of locked and loaded, and we'll make sure they're accurate to what's literally announced. But like you said, there, the whole thing is leaked. So that's today, folks. It's going to be a big Apple-y kind of day. How about you?
Well, I'm looking forward to the complaints that all we cover is Apple anymore. That will inevitably happen after everything happens, followed by the complaints on Google Day, where we get complaints that we only cover Google stuff, followed by normal complaints on mid-October.
Sure. Yeah, this is the cycle of abuse that is our website. It's okay.
It's great. All right, folks. Well, that wraps it up for today. As always, we will have our Apple Keynote Hangover edition tomorrow, where we dive into everything and do all that good stuff. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and we'll catch you right back here tomorrow.